Before we actually go live. There we go. Welcome, everybody, to the FEI podcast. My name is Todd Kelly, writer, creator of Shuttle the Defender, Project Titans, Atlas Rising, and 30 other stories in my head that I haven't had time to write yet. It'll work out. We'll make it work. With me, as always, is my bearded bash brother. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and we're going to go from there.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Nick. As you see, Emperor of everything Todd does not want to do.
That's still a good list, buddy.
It is. Hey, it's growing. We'll make it grow. You threw me off.
It is what it is. All right, our amazing guest for the day, and we're going to be very cognizant of time here. So our amazing guest is the one and only. I titled this "The One and Only Andrea" because again, like it's just been absolutely awesome since we've met. Very cool stuff. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you've got more titles than I know how to do. Know what to give credit to. So I'm going to let you roll with that, and then we're going to go.
No, just keep it real simple. Andrea Lorenzo Molinari. I'm the editorial director for Scout Comics, which is a small and independent publisher based out of Fort Myers, Florida. I'm also the co-creator, along with my son, Roberto. We are the co-creators of the original graphic novel series, The Shepherd. Which is dealing with basically ghost stories, but the stories are predominantly located in the afterlife.
Very cool. So you mentioned obviously that you co-wrote that with your son. So I want to tell you this, and so I remember seeing you guys at the Tampa Bay Comic-Con. Okay, so this was before, I believe it was before it was picked up with Scout. It was you guys just out there doing it, and I remember the cosplay as the Shepherd. Yeah. And I remember going around, and I think it was Roberto that I actually ran into and was like pitching us the series. And I think at the time, the first time we kind of ran in, I think like maybe you had been there and like either left to get food or something along those lines. But at the time, like I remember I run into Roberto. I feel like he was dressed as a shepherd. I want to say almost like the whole family was there for that particular weekend. But I remember him like pitching me the book. And I'm just like, this sounds awesome. Like, this is really cool. Like, I'm excited about this. I did buy it from him. I wish I knew where it was, but it did get purchased because I just remember thinking, holy crap, this sounds awesome. So I want to hear a little bit about kind of how did your, I know when I first heard of The Shepherd, how did your journey start?
Well, it wasn't on purpose. It was kind of accidental. Basically, it's going to sound really weird, but it actually started with a nightmare that I had.
Oh, okay.
And my son and I have always been close. My co-writer Roberto, and in fact, we share an office. I'm in that office. I had to boot him out of the office, as both you guys know, for this interview. He and his buddies were playing an online war game, and he was less than pleased, but he graciously said, fine, take the office. So
we're sorry.
But yeah, the dream that I had with this nightmare that I had was actually about him. And I woke up, I was very shaken because something really terrible had happened to him in the dream. And not only did that event happen, but all these subsequent things, it was like I describe it as being put on like a roller coaster that you would prefer not to be on. And you're going on this entire journey of not just one event, but a series of sequential things happening. And I woke up, I was very upset about it because in my dream, he had died. And all the things that flow from that, the identifying him in the morgue, the funeral home, the graveside, the subsequent mourning him after that. And I woke up and very upset. And of course, my wife was, I'd woken up with a start, and my wife was concerned about me, and she asked me, what had happened. I told her. She was less than thrilled to hear it. And it took me a couple days really to get up enough nerve to talk to my son about it, because in my own head, I'm trying to make sense of this, because I'd never had any dream like this before. In fact, most of the dreams that I have, I don't remember. It's like with most people, it's like they're like sands, grains of sand in your hand passing through your fingers, in the minutes after you wake up. But this one, it was like everything that had happened in that dream was like branded into me, like a tattoo. And when I finally told Roberto about it, his whole reaction was, "Dad, that's really cool." And I was like, no, actually,
No.
quite the opposite of that. It's
Yeah.
180 degrees from cool. That's the last thing you want as a dad is dreaming about your son dying, burying your son. So I didn't really know what to do with it, but he was right from the beginning. He really felt it was a story that had been dropped in our lap, and he really saw that we should tell it. We should, and he really nagged me just to be very as blunt as possible. He just bothered me a lot about it, really pestered me. And eventually, this was in June of 2011. I had like a lull in my day job because I was a college professor. I was, working in a college administration. So I had, all the publication. I was writing scholarly articles, editing stuff. I was, teaching classes and doing all the admin that goes with leading a program. And I had no time for this. And I managed to get this like little lull period where I had finished some major projects. And I had mentioned to my wife, I remember having a conversation in the kitchen and I said, I actually have a little bit of time to myself. And I didn't know it, but my son was out in the living room and he overheard it. So I was like, damn, because now I have no excuse. So I was like, okay, if it'll get you off my back, let's sit down, I'll sit down, we'll start writing this thing, see what happens. Well, we did, and it just flowed out of me. And within under a month, the entire first volume of The Shepherd was written. And I thought, okay, now it's done, it's written, we're good. I hope you're happy. I'm done. And he was like, no, we need to make a graphic novel out of this. We need to do something with this. We need to get an artist. And he pushed and pushed and pushed. And eventually we found a company that was kind of like a boutique type thing where they have a number of different artists. You pick your artist, you pick your colorist, you put together a creative team. The company kind of like guides you along, helps you to put it together. And that's what we did, and I was too stupid, clueless about what I was doing. I took on, it was a 119-page graphic novel.
Wow.
Which was really dumb. And I don't recommend that at all. I'm like, don't do that. That's dumb. It's really dumb. Because first of all, it's expensive. But second of all, there's all kinds of risks. We can talk more about that later, but there's all kinds of risks that are attendant with trying to put together a graphic novel or comic book. And, we did it though. We pulled it off. We did all, the entire book. And then again, I thought it was done. He's like, no, Dad, we got to find a publisher, which translated was, no, Dad, you need to find a publisher, because he was big on pep talks, but not so big on doing all the letter writing and the emails and the follow-ups and the phone calls and all that. Anyway, long story short, we ended up getting Caliber Comics. Caliber Comics was interested in the book. We sent it in to them. This would have been December of 14, and it ended up being published in May of 15. Okay. And so that was our entree, because I was going to have a publisher, because keep in mind, this was not my first book. I already had multiple books published before this. Okay. And so I was, and from a scholarly point of view, I was thinking about building my resume. So I was thinking, this is going to if I'm going to bust my ass on this and I'm paying for all this art, this is going to have a publisher. If I ever shoot them, there's going to be a publisher. So I just kept going, kept looking until we found one. And so then we were with them for 5 years, and that's when, you're talking that period where we met. And at the 5-year point, we ended up jumping, and now we're with Scout, and we can unpack the reasons why. But I mean, that we've been with Scout since July of 2020. Okay.
Good stuff. Well,
so that gives you, that's the early years kind of thing. Obviously there's a ton that could be unpacked in there, but that's how our path went.
That's crazy. Well, so
it is crazy. There's nothing sane about doing comics. Trust me, you know this already.
Look, man, we went to. It's funny because again, so I talked about Tampa Bay, but we were at Tampa Bay one time, and I kind of told you, where we go towards the end of this, but we were at a panel, And it was one of those things where, like, for me personally, like, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to do it, and that, I didn't really know how to get there. So I went to a panel, and it was about how to write, like, comic books and stories, and I'm there. And one of the very first questions they asked them was just like, "Do you have any advice, for everybody out there, like, just, kind of get it started?" And he literally was like, "If you can quit now, quit. Like, if you can quit, if you are capable of stopping, just stop now. It's okay. If you can't, like, if it's going to eat at your soul, if, like, this is just something you have to do, then okay, cool. Sucks for you. But if you can quit, quit." Yeah. And that was, I remember that. And I was just like, I can't. I remember, like, Nick was there, and I was like, I can't quit. And he's like, crap.
No, I understand that. I mean, that's, like I said in the initial statement, is that there's a lot of perils and pitfalls to doing this kind of thing. And unless you're lucky enough to kind of like fall into a situation where you have a mentor who's been there, done that, and can kind of help protect you from some of there's like predatorial people out there, that really want to take advantage of you. And especially, the thing that the viewer has to understand is that usually in comics, at least in independent comics, the writer is the one that's bearing the cost. So in other words, the writer is the one who hired. Like, that's been an experience of my entire time in it. I pay the artist, I pay the colorist, I pay the letterer, and I don't begrudge any of that. But that's the reality, that you're the one coming up, figuring out how to do that. Now, I was very fortunate because at the time that I was doing this, because I was in academic administration, I was doing very well. So, and my wife was incredibly supportive of it. So I had the financial resources to do it. But if you don't, it can be it's scary, because just to give you an example of this, that first graphic novel, like I said, 119 pages, 5 issues. Okay.
Yep.
In my experience, I chose an artist with that company, and we did the entire issue 1. I mean, pencils, inks, colors, ready right up to the letters. And then the artist quit. Okay. Now you need to understand, I had paid for everything.
Yep.
Everything is completely paid for that first issue.
Yep.
And now I'm in a situation where I'm going to have to do issue 2 with a different artist, and it's going to look like it's a different artist, because trying to match artists, good luck.
Right.
That's high level stuff, to be able to get an artist, to find an artist that could really match. And even then you're going to know, you're going to be able to tell that it's a different style,
Okay.
So you're basically the situation was that we did this other artist and we did issues 2 to 5. And then when we got there, I knew this was coming. I was like, yeah, there's no way I am going to leave this as is and have one artist here in issue 1, and then we're going to do. So I ended up having him redo issue 1.
So I was going to ask, did you have?
I paid a second time for issue 1, is what it comes down to. And that it could have been a lot worse. I mean, because whenever you get into creative stuff, this is another thing there's egos involved. You may not be surprised to hear that. There's a lot of egos involved. Yeah. And, think about this, like in music, we love these bands. How many times do you see this where you have this band that has a hit single and then you never hear from them again? Why? Because they got drunk with the success and the egos took over and it splattered it. It just, they couldn't hold it together, so you have to, like, as a creator, it's like, you have to be able to, especially remember that the writer is in many ways the project director. Oh yeah. You're kind of directing, you're, like I said, you're funding it. You're bringing this team together. You're writing that script and then presenting it to the artist and making sure they get paid in a timely fashion. So you have to be able to deal with the personalities and be understanding, because life happens. And for the most part, especially independent creators, we can't afford to pay these guys a living wage. So what it means is that they're doing something else. Right. We could talk about it as being, there's an and in their life, that they're doing the comic book and
Right.
trying to make a living doing something usually different.
Mhm.
You know? So you have to have a lot of patience, and you have to have a lot of understanding, and you have to be able to fight through the urge to strangle somebody sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
and just kind of like bury your own ego and try to say everything is in service to this, you know. And it even goes so far into how you work with the artist. And I'm talking about it from a writer's perspective, because that's
Of course.
what I've, you know,
Same.
but comic books are a team sport.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you come in like, and I've seen this as an editor, I love it. You know, it's just terrible to watch, but you just see it coming. You have a writer, like where I see this the most is we get these screenplays, and these guys are Hollywood types that want to make a graphic novel. Okay.
Mhm.
And they come in and they're an auteur. I'm an auteur and I have a vision, and you must bow to this greater vision. And I'm like, I can hardly wait to see how that's going to go with the artist. Because here's the thing is that in comics, you as a writer want that artist to breathe their vision into your writing.
There you go.
Because together you find this middle ground, because they're going to see things in the story that you might not have even realized were there or potentially there. And those could be some of the best parts of your book that are kind of latent, but they bring them forward. And so you want to give your artist, I mean, obviously you have hills that you may want to die on, and there's nothing wrong with having something you really feel is important. But having a general posture of being open to what your artist wants to bring, you know, and truly listen to them as best you can, you know, that's an art in itself, you know, is that kind of that cooperative teamwork, real teamwork that goes on there, and trust that your artist is, you know, trust their vision of what they're seeing there.
So I agree with you 1,000%. And I think in terms of that, again, you got to understand the medium here. And, you know, again, people are going to look at the art first, and, you know, the art's got to be there. You know, and look, I think you have your bullet points. I think you have like like you said, those hills you're going to die on, those plot things that you're not going to give up like you want. But other than that, I mean, again, every strong artist that I've worked with, you know, they breathe so much cool stuff into it. And you know, you're focused on building this whole world from a very like 10,000 foot level, and they get in there and they're on the streets. And one of my favorite things that an artist did was the Atlas Rising book we did. He went and snuck in graffiti that just said Todd was here. And it was nothing that I ever thought about or anything like that. And anybody that ever read the book from us, they would always just be like, "Hey man, I saw that Todd was here. That was really cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, I had nothing to do with that. Like it was the artist. He just thought it was cool, and he had a lot of fun with it." So I have a question though, because obviously from, you know, my business mind kicks in here. And, you know, with comics, obviously variants are a very big thing. So have you ever considered reprinting the issue 1 of the original art and having that almost be like an alternate reality of the Shepherd, or like a nightmare version of the Shepherd, or just something? Like, have you ever considered putting that to work? I mean, you paid for it. So like,
yeah, here's a little bit of trivia. This is, no one will care, but I'll just say it anyway, is, you know, we've got to be approaching 600 pages of Shepherd stories.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Now, not all of it's published yet, because like I have an entire graphic novel that I'm planning to have out next year. It's 106 pages and it's done.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Just needs to be lettered. Yeah. That one's called The Burning Maid. And that one just needs to be lettered. The script is completely written. It's just a matter of having the money to afford to pay the letterer. I know who's going to do the lettering. We've already talked about it and everything. So it'll get done. But, you know, this whole thing about, remind me what you just said. This is my elderly.
Oh, we're just talking about a variant, potentially doing the variant.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So my point was 600 pages almost of writing of the Shepherd, and the only traditionally illustrated part of the Shepherd is the unpublished first issue. I'm like, yeah, that would be the story of my life right there. So yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've thought about it. It's definitely a very different, you know, every artist that renders the story would do it differently. It's like if you, for example, if you read grew up in reading Batman. I mean, there are so many different looks. Like Mike Mignola, how does he draw Batman, and how does Jay Lee draw Batman, or somebody like Jim Lee draw Batman, Frank Miller. Each of these artists, and you could go on and on, and they have a very different look, very different style. They've even gone so far as to have statues, the Batman statues in the different artistic styles. So it would be a very different style. That's a possibility, I think this already, but I'm actually working on we're redoing the art for the entire first graphic novel. I've got an artist that I really, really like, and it's closer to what I had, envisioned, and, it's just something that I wanted to do. And I'm like, I know it's going to cost me money, but it's like,
whatever.
I'm already into it this far. So
yeah.
My wife hasn't divorced me yet.
There you go.
That's the key word in the sentence.
I mean, again, I love it though. And I mean, I think it's funny because you mentioned updating the artwork. So we're updating the artwork on one of our titles, the Project Titans title. And it was very similar in terms of, it was the first book I ever worked on, very similar to you. I was just like, went into this, like I was dead set. I was going to do 5 issues before I even went to a show and started selling it. Like I wanted to have the whole story. And my logic with it was that, I'm a binge reader, and I also didn't really want to do a lot of online sales. So my logic was that I was going to be at the con. I was going to have all 5 issues. I was going to sell you all 5 issues. Yeah. And my logic being that I was a strong seller and I was going to be able to do that. And that was okay. And that worked well for us. It was fine. But from an artwork standpoint, again, I very much took a business approach to it, and maybe did not get the best artwork. It was economical. We're just going to put it that way. And now we're going back and updating it, because we're just like, let's, I want better artwork. I want it. But now we're going to even change it too, and going to kind of print it more like a manga this go around, because it was black and white. It was manga influenced, and going to have fun with it. So I think though, with us, just again as creators, like, that's us, man. Let's update the artwork. Let's do that. Like you're going to sell it, and you're 10 years later after redoing it, like you want it to be on that level of where you're at now, as opposed to where you were at 10 years ago. Like the artist who did issue 1 of Project Titans literally hit me up a while ago. He's like, "Are you still selling that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Man, my art was so bad back then. It's so much better." He's like, "I want to redo it." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And he was like, "All right," and gave me like an amount per page. And I'm like, "Wait, no." like if you want to redo it, you can redo it. But I'm like I'm good with it. So
yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's it's expensive to do. I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at a while back there when I said, I don't recommend people doing 5 issues story art. I mean, the way to do it, I think, if you wanted to do a comic and see if you wanted, going to do it, the first thing is I would do 1 issue, a one shot. If you can write a good 20 to 25 page one shot story, standalone, satisfying, beginning, middle, end. That also puts you in a position where you can maybe pay a little bit more for the art.
There you go.
And that's something that I recommend, is that if you have any hope at all of finding a publisher, you cannot skimp on the art, because they're just, you just won't be able to get it. If you don't mind, if you want to be an independent and not have a publisher, then you can do whatever you want, but you just need to understand is that you can't not pay $50 a page and expect to find a publisher that's going to run it. It's just not going to happen, Right. One of the things that I'm very fortunate now in the work that I'm doing, because I'm an editor, I have, creators that send me their portfolios. Mm-hmm. And that really helps. And what I try to do is I kind of share that love with the, writers that come to me and say, "Hey, I'm looking to do a book, and I need, a pencil and ink, or I need a colorist, I need a letterer. What do you have?" And then we talk about budget, So I do that a lot.
You very quickly became my entire phone book for various artists, because I was just, because it is what it is. But I mean, you talked about the first guy who, again, did the first book and then kind of bailed on you. And I cannot tell you how many relatively similar situations where, you start working with somebody to share some ideas. Maybe they'll do a couple pages and then they'll book. Or and they'll go through that. And again, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people and, they've done a bit of art for me. And then, they'll get paid for a few pages and then they'll just head out. And I'm stuck with some pages that I can't use, other than maybe a social media post. And other than that, I can't do anything with it. I mean, I have, pretty decent, written agreements that people get put into. Shout out to my attorney wife. Love you, Sam. But still, I mean, they drop off the face of the earth. They drop off the face of the earth. There's not much you can do. So the reason I say that is, a lot of times, when you've got somebody, or again, you've got a resource where, they have people that want to work and go rock out. You put me in touch with Sergio, who did the Sheldor book. So, you put me in touch with him. And he was absolutely amazing. We had a little bit of a language barrier, but other than that, he was because he's based out of Spain. And even out the gate, he's like, "All right, man." He's like, "My English is not the best, so let's do this." I'm like, "Fantastic, bro. We're gonna get there." But his art was absolutely amazing, and he just, again, even now, he's still working on a couple new chapters. Like he's a rock star. I'm not gonna let him go. Like, as long as he's still doing art, I'm gonna be feeding him projects. Like, I will finally write some of those 37 stories that are stuck up in my head just to keep that man busy, so he doesn't go work for somebody else. Like, he's gonna get work from me. So I will say this: when you find a good artist, you take care of them. You buy them chocolate candy, you tip them, you pay them on time, you take care of your artists, okay? Because the good ones are hard to find.
Well, it's a lot of work. I mean, that's what you're describing, where I think, it's you want to find an artist that you can afford, that is an experienced artist, and that really is the game right there, is finding a productive, experienced, affordable artist, and I'm saying it with a certain chuckle because it's not unlike finding a unicorn. Believe that they're out there. They are out there. They're out there. You just need to know where to look for them. But you definitely need to have, I wouldn't work with a rookie. I just wouldn't, because they need to understand it's a tremendous amount of work, and an independent or a small press creator just cannot pay. For example, my budget per page is about $150 all in.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that I need to find an artist to do pencils and inks. That I cannot afford to have a separate inker. There's going to be a pencil and ink person. There's going to be a colorist and a letterer. And I need to fit that within $150 a page. Yep. And I'm going to tell you why, because I don't make royalties of any substance at all. When I get royalty checks, they're checks usually in the hundreds. Okay. Now you say, well, that doesn't sound bad. Yeah. Except for the art costs in the thousands. Okay. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the work that I do as a comic book writer is what I describe as my most expensive hobby. There you go. And that's what my experience has been. It really has been. It's expensive to get the art that you need to be able to get published, and there's different ways you can do it. You can get an extra job. You can do the crowdfunding route. A lot of creators do that. I'm sure you've talked about it. I know Sheldor just got funded, on a crowdfunding, but the thing that people need to understand is that crowdfunding is a lot of work. It's
I'm still tired.
Yeah. And keep in mind that you as the creator, you have to think about how much, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this. Okay. So Kickstarter takes, what is it, 8% right off the top? Like yeah. Okay, so whatever their percentage is, I think it's 8, and I can be corrected, but Kickstarter isn't doing this for free. You're not using their platform for free, so that's
nor should we be.
By the way, that all that money you collect, that's what we call income. Okay, and who does that involve? That's our old Uncle Sam, and that Uncle Sam is watching, so that you're going to be paying taxes on it. And then, you also have to, all those, all the what do they call it? It's not gifts, the tiers, all the rewards, that all has to be shipped.
Yep.
Okay. And you need to understand it, as you know very well, Todd, it's not even just the mailing costs. It's the time cost to do the packing.
There you go.
And then, to the mailing. So there's a lot of creator, and you're the one doing that, absorbing that. So it's a lot of unpaid hours. If you actually do the breakdown you don't really want to do the breakdown.
No. I was just gonna say, just
You
don't.
don't really,
Just
don't.
Look,
that's what I tell people. Like, even with these conventions, like let's say you make, as a writer, you're got a table cost, you've got your gas, you got food, you're going to have some hotel expense. I mean, there's things you can do to mitigate these, of course. Like, for example, you can focus on doing like Tampa Bay, for example. One of the reasons why I do Tampa Bay Comic-Con is I've got one of the young guys. He was my son Roberto's best friend. I remember him from junior high days where he'd come and, eat my chips and watch movies in my living room.
I was gonna say, and play Xbox.
Now I stay with him because he's right there. He's right there in the Tampa Bay area, and so I stay with him. Berto and I always stay with him when we go to the Tampa Bay Comic-Con, and of course that's could be 3 or 4 nights in a hotel, and you figure even at $100 a night, that's $400 that you just saved. That's a lot.
Yeah, that happened to us one year at Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, so if you can do that, and then obviously there's other things you can do, and I don't want to get into the nitty gritty because you could do a whole show on all that, but you make a few $100s, but when you start to break it down, how many hours, because you can do, and I'm right on this. Yeah. You can spend almost 40 hours, 35 hours, 40 hours on the floor for a con like at Tampa.
That's all the floor.
Because you've got your load in, you've got, you need to be there at your table before it starts. I mean, you got the VIP stuff, you've got the entire day, then any breakdown and any of your but inventory at the end of the day, prepping for the next day, then doing it all again. 35 hours on the floor is very, very reasonable. Very, that's a typical amount of time. And then if you're driving anywhere, and you need to understand, I'm driving. I mean, like in May, I've got my first con in May is in Indianapolis. My second con is in Chattanooga. My third con is in Detroit. That's in May.
I was going to ask if you were going to that one.
Yeah, I'm doing those 3 in May. Excellent. So, and of course, they didn't have the common courtesy of putting Indiana and Detroit back to back, where I could have just stayed with friends.
Yeah.
Man.
So I'll be doing extra running. So, but you figure by the time you add all that travel time, because with the books that I'm doing, if you were shipping those books, you would be
paying out the wazoo.
So even if you make money at a con, if you do what the hourly wage is, let's just say minimum wage would be good.
Yeah. Well,
you're not making minimum wage, but it'd be really cool if you could. So.
I usually pay Nick and buy him comic books. That's how I pay Nick. I don't. It's funny you mentioned that too, though.
I'm probably depressing the hell out of would-be creators everywhere. They're like, "What the hell? Well, what is the upside of this?" Aha! That's the point right there. That's what that guy
tell
said.
us.
It's like if you can quit, do it. Because that's you. This is really something you do because you love.
There you go.
You really love doing this. You love the art form of telling stories with sequential art, working as a team, crafting something that has a lasting value that perhaps that people will find inspiring or fun or,
I will tell you this, working cons, and I mean, I will, get back very late on a Sunday evening because I never want to waste my PTO or vacation time by taking a Monday off. Like I'm not gonna just go to work. It's all good. So like we talked about, you get a few hours sleep and you go back in. I will tell you this though, as tired as I am, I'm never more excited on a Monday than after I get back from a con. Like it's just I love working shows, and they're tough. And the thing too is like at a certain point you kind of. I don't know about you, but I'm reaching a point where like if I know there's a chance that a show is going to be a loss, like, and I consider a loss like if I like don't do really well, like I don't even want to take a shot anymore at it. Like I'm really interested in like shows that I know I can win at or shows that I've never done before. But if I've already done it and I either just barely broke even or barely made any money, I don't like. I'm not as interested. I'm also not as interested in going back. Like if it's like the only way I'm going to make money is that I have to be able to crash with a friend. I have to be able to like live off pizza, you know, $5 pizzas the whole time. Like if that's what makes or breaks it for me, I don't want to go back. There's not a ton of them, but there are a few. But I mean, I think on the other side, like for me, it's either a show that I know I can go crush it at, or if it's just a brand new show that I've never been to, it's in a city that I want to go to. I'll take that every day. But I mean, like we've talked about in the past, like for me, and you know, you mentioned a lot of this, the stuff and the thing I'll throw out there too, you're away from your family. And then that's always kind of the big one too, is, you know, I'm just, my daughter always does something cool while I'm gone. I have no idea how it works out, but she always does something really freaking cool. And I got to hear about it over the phone. And I'm just like, man, I missed that. Like, like how many books do I have to sell to get that moment back? You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I enjoy shows. Like this is just a trade-off. Like it is what it is. But I mean, I love going to work. Like flat out. I would do it. You know, if that was my full-time gig going, if I didn't have to miss stuff on the weekends, like that's what I enjoy doing. When I started writing comics, I didn't even know getting published was a possibility. Like it wasn't something I considered. What I knew was I could go to shows and I could sell them, and I was good with that. Like I love it. Now after I did it for a little while, I'm like, all right, I want to get published. Like that'd be cool. Like I want that next.
Yeah.
So.
No, that makes sense.
So what was it like co-writing it with your son? So I've never co-wrote anything. This is one of the things I wanted to kind of talk through, because again, you talked about kind of the ego side of it, right? So all writers, artists, creators, like we all got it. Like it is what it is. I joke around all the time that like one of the ways I avoid the ego problem is I just have the biggest ego in the room. So like, you know, it's how I avoid it. But in terms of co-writing, you know, with your son, like how does that work? Like, you know, did you guys run into any pitfalls, or just been like nice?
No, actually, I mean, you know, it's actually gone very well. You know, I think the key is kind of like trusting each other and just saying, you know, if you think differently, tell me why.
Yeah.
Really listen to what the answer is, you know, and don't come at it with this attitude like I've got everything right. You know, like I understand everything, you know, because that, again, it goes back to that understanding the medium. Like if you want to do comics is a team sport. Even if, whether you're co-writing with somebody or not, like I said, your artist is co-creating with you a world. So is the colorist and the letterer. I even tell people the letterer is guiding the reader. They're actually dictating how the reader reads the story, pacing you through the story, positioning your eye. They are good letterers guiding your eye through the page, you know, so they're telling you how to read the story. So if you don't want that kind of interaction, then you should probably learn to draw yourself and do everything yourself, you know. So understanding, like if you want a solitary game, maybe golf is your game, you know, but if you want a team sport, maybe football, soccer, basketball, and then really leaning into the fact that, you know, that everybody's contributing something to this. So that's important. I talked to him because I find that he has a really good sense of a lot of things. I managed to win him over a couple elements. Like one of the things that we talked a lot about is, you know, this idea, like our main characters are ghosts. So, you know, if the ghost saw, you know, evil being done, could the ghost intervene and kill, you know? And you see this all the time where you have these like ghosts and apparitions that kill. And to me, I think that there's a real problem there. You know, there's all kinds of problems there actually with it, because what you now have is the living actors are no longer responsible for taking action to stop evil or to do something or to help somebody. You know, that you need essentially, you know, this ghost to intervene and punish somebody who's bad or fill in the blank, you know? So that was one of the things that I felt from the beginning, is that our character couldn't kill, you know, that it doesn't mean you can't frighten the absolute hell out of somebody. You can certainly do that. And there are things that they can do, you know, but taking a life is a line that I felt like our character couldn't cross. I also feel like that has to do with if the character is a hero too. Like a hero shouldn't, you know, and I know there are people who feel differently. Like my brother, if my brother was here, he'd laugh at that, because let's just put it this way. His favorite character was always the Punisher. And he was like, there are no recurring villains in the Punisher, you know? And I said, well, you know, he goes, with Batman, how many times has he fought the Joker and how many people have died as a result of him not doing the job that should have been done? And I said, well, you know, but the whole point of the hero is the hero doesn't stoop to the level of that darkness. I said, otherwise you just have, you know, this character who's a hero, but is doing all the same things that a murderer does. You know? Again, there are people who think differently, but that was, you know, like I said, for me, a lot of it had to do with the fact that this was a supernatural story. And I didn't really like that idea. I've always found that to be philosophically problematic with this idea that, you know, that you could have a ghost kind of intervening into our, because where would it end? Seriously, where would it end? You know, like let's say a ghost were to intervene and to kill Hitler before all, you know, whatever happened. So maybe it's a Jewish ghost, you know. I don't even mean that in a humorous way. I'm just thinking that would actually be a very interesting story, is that if you had a Jewish ghost that knew that they had to stop Hitler and they could intervene and save them, you know, then you let's back that up and say, well, what if there was a German ghost who felt that the Nazis party was actually correct about things, so then they could intervene to prevent, and it would just be this ridiculous. You know, it's kind of like a mirror, the two mirrors being put up to each other. I just thought, not doing that. You know, if it's in the afterlife, it's in the afterlife. But we spent a lot of time talking about that. Yeah, we really did. It was a great conversation. It really was. So, I
like that. That's cool, though. And I think having the collaboration, again, can be very helpful. And I mean, I know personally as someone who, again, went from writing a story without an editor to writing a story with an editor and getting collaboration there. That was infinitely better. So, I mean, I imagine having the collaboration is cool. And it's also got to be cool to do it with your son, right? I mean, like on a certain level, like just having that together has got to be something that, you know, again, not a lot of people have that experience.
Yeah. No, I absolutely wouldn't trade it. The book that's coming out this year, actually our first issue of The Tether, is actually a book that my son was the lead writer, and that I took a secondary role in the writing. And that was... He's done, like, there are elements that he did in The Shepherd where he took the lead in smaller bites, but this was for it's a 131-page graphic novel, and he was the lead writer in the story. Nice. So it was interesting because it's like a romance set in the afterlife. It's the best way to summarize it.
Huh. So, all right.
Yeah. So it was even a genre that was, you know, different.
I was going to say, so we just took it in a whole different direction. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to do different things with the stories. Like the one that's coming next year is actually a horror mixed with courtroom drama.
All right. So I know a little bit about it, but what can you share? Because it sounds super cool. And by the way, the cover is absolutely amazing.
Do we have the ability to show the cover?
So towards the bottom, if you've got your if you're on your computer, if you go to present, you can hit present. So if you want to pull the cover up in the background, then you can hit present, and then you can you should be able to click it on there. I will
tell you this: if I show this would be the first time anyone has seen it other than the team itself. So this would be like a thing.
There you go. I saw it at a con. It was just like, this is really cool. So
let's see if I can do this. Present, you said?
Yeah, it should be towards the bottom between, like, I think, I don't know, yours might say, mine says settings and invite, and then presents towards the bottom on the StreamYard screen.
Okay.
I learned how to do this.
Can you see it? Did I do it?
Yeah, hang on one second. Let me see. It lets me add it to, boom, there we go.
Oh, wow.
Can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Look at us. We did something new. It's the first time we've done this on the show. So.
Well, this is Sasha Yoselani. She's an artist that I actually met at SuperCon in Miami. Nice. And the story is called The Burning Maid, and it deals with Joan of Arc. That's who this is here. And my idea was, like, I don't know how much you know about the story of Joan of Arc, but she believed that she was being told by God, you know, these angels and saints appearing to her and telling her that she needed to lead France to in the war against England. This was, by the way, it was set in the time of the 100 Years' War. So, like, you know, the 15th century, early 15th century. Mm-hmm. And there's literally 100-year period where France and England are arguing and fighting over who has a legitimate right to the throne to be the king of France. And she believed that God was telling her, to lead France to unity. And she went to the Dauphin, which was the equivalent, the prince, and told him that what her mission was. And they ended up, they had her, reviewed by theologians at the time to see if such a thing could even be possible. And they approved her. And then he gave her an army, and then she went to town. She just started, taking out one British one English stronghold after another. And anyway, she was eventually captured in battle, and she was put on trial, and she was convicted of heresy, which the heresy was of her wearing men's clothes, because she dressed like a soldier. I mean, it made sense. If you think about it, she wore men's clothes, cut her hair like a man, because she was on the battlefield. And they ended up threatening her and eventually condemning her to be burned at the stake, where she was burned at the stake. And eventually there was a retrial. Her mother actually petitioned the Pope and everything, and there was a retrial. Her name was cleared. And then eventually in the 20th century, early 20th century, she was proclaimed a saint. So that's historically what happened. Now, I thought to myself, well, what if, which is the beginning of all good stories, right? What if she's in the afterlife and she doesn't know any of that? Like, so in other words, she doesn't know about the retrial. She doesn't know about the fact that her name was cleared. She doesn't know that the church made her a saint. None of that. So she has all this anger for the way she was treated, the way she was abused, because there's good evidence that she was actually raped while she was in prison, because she was known as a virgin, because that was kind of made her even that much more spiritual. Like God was talking to this virgin, and leading this virgin, to do these great military conquests. And, so I thought to myself, that could be really interesting. I imagined her in the afterlife where she's basically hunting down the men who did this to her and making them redo the trial. And at the end, when they go to condemn her, she flips the script and condemns them and burns them at the stake instead. And then the whole process begins again like a broken record. So this is what she's been doing in the afterlife. So that's The Burning Maid. Huh. Nice light, aperitif. So
I just want to read it. So I'm excited.
That sounds awesome.
I'm very excited by it. I think we've got some amazing art. If you're interested, I'll show you a little bit of the interior art.
Do it.
The art is done by an Italian artist, Luca Panziroli, and he's the one that's working on the reboot of Volume 1. But he's an amazing artist. See if I can bring this up. It has been an absolute joy working with him. That story, The Burning Maid's 106 pages, like I think I told you. Mm-hmm. And in that 106 pages that he did of the artwork, I probably had 7 corrections. 7. Think about that for a second. 7 corrections. And I think the reason for it, I'm going to show you I think I can do this. Trying to find some of these pages that I can show you for the.
Oh, you're good. The cover was sick though, right?
Yeah.
I fell in love with it. I have the original, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah.
I gotta start doing that. I gotta start asking for the original art.
Well, it's more expensive. It was not cheap. You don't want to know. You don't want to know. But I mean, my whole philosophy was, I'm going to frame it. I'll put it on the wall in my office, and my kids can fight over it when I'm dead. But
so here's what I would say too, though. Man, bring it to a show. Like whenever you debut the book, put that bad boy, hang it up, display it. Because
there you go. This is the first page in the novel.
Oh, that's sick. That's sick. Yeah, you should be able to.
So this is actually set in Rouen, France, which is where her trial took place. And this is a priest fleeing from something in the middle of the night. This is actual, the artwork is actually based on a real clock tower that exists in the city of Rouen.
Nice.
So he's being chased. And I'll give you a hint, it's her.
I was gonna say, I was gonna joke. I was like, I wonder what it is.
Yeah, and he knows.
That's cool again.
He ends in tripping and falling.
Man,
Of course.
yeah.
Falls in it's an open sewer, so think of it as a cesspool. So that's not just mud on his face. Something worse. But as he tries to get up, face first again, and the question is why? Look at the back of his head. Can you see it?
Yeah.
That's a handprint in his hair.
Oh, I see it.
But you don't see the hand until you look here.
Oh, wow.
She's basically drowning him in the cesspool.
That's cool.
Now, keep in mind, what did I just tell you? That our spirits don't kill in the earth, but keep in mind, this isn't in the earth. This is in the afterlife.
Yeah.
This is taking place in the afterlife.
That's
So
cool.
she's repeating these events. And then this is the immediate next page. This is the home of the bishop that was presided over her trial. His name was Pierre Cochon. He was actually that's the real name of the person that did it. How do we know this? We know this because we actually have the trial transcripts of that trial that sentenced her to death. So when I wrote it, I actually it's based on the actual trial transcripts.
That's cool.
Wow. That's awesome.
I'm like, don't get me wrong. I'm gonna give the Tether a read, and I'm excited about it. But this is the one that I'm just like, holy crap! Like, you told me about this story. I think it was either November or December last year when we were down at that. I don't even remember where the show was. There was a show in Florida, and you were telling me about it, and I was just like, holy crap! Like this is legit. Oh,
yeah, Luke is amazing. Luke is an incredible artist, and he's such a good guy. I just enjoy working with him so much. But it's like he's in my head. Like I've never had an artist that reads my scripts, and he's like, well, your scripts are very clear. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure that's the case, but whatever's happening here between us, it's like we're really simpatico, and like he really gets me, and like, you know, and then he riffs on like this. Check this out here. This is the bishop himself, Cochon, and being visited by the maid.
Yeah, I don't question magic. When it happens, it happens.
And this is I'll just stop it there because I'm probably already shared more than I should. But these stories are actually based on the real things that happened to these guys. Like they found the bishop dead of a heart attack. You know, and so I thought, why not lean into that history? That priest that you saw that was found face down in the cesspool, that actually happened. Now, I'm not saying Joan did it to him,
right.
but I'm like, he died that way, and no one understood what did it to him. I'm like, oh yeah, we're using that. That's because I was thinking, how cool would that be to add that to the story? So that's all. And by the way, there's the part that you didn't see, the next. Because there's three main church figures that condemn her to death. And you saw the first two of them. The third one ends up as a leper. Okay. Now this is historically accurate. He actually, I'll show you I'll show you the leper one too.
I like it.
I'm just going to show you this opening. This is part of the opening sequence. So I'll just, that way you've seen the opening sequence.
I love it.
So what you're about to see, this is the monk coming back and finding the bishop dead from the heart attack or supposed heart attack.
That's cool.
Then this is the last of the three figures. This is a leper colony. And this is that guy that once was a priest who helped put her on trial. He was like think of him as like the prosecuting attorney. And you can see, look at the work he did on the leprosy.
Yeah.
So
but
much depth.
this actually is true. This guy did die a leper. And here's the part is that in the story, like he knows that she's come for him and he wants her to kill him, and she doesn't. Her punishment to him is she just leaves him to die slow. And but this is, like I said, this is all historically accurate. What's interesting about this, and I'm not making this up, one of the last things this man said to her was he told her that her heresy was like a leprosy to the church.
Oh.
And how does he die? As a leper. I was like, whew. I said, yep, we're going to be using that in the book too. So yeah, I mean, what's interesting, I find, and this is kind of my style with horror, is that I don't like to make up horror stories. I feel like if you look in history, if you know anything about history, history will give you real horror stories. The real thing, You don't need Freddy Krueger, and you don't need Jason. We've got, Mengele, Joseph Mengele.
Mm-hmm.
We've got, Elizabeth Bathory. We've got, Ted Bundy, and I mean, these are real monsters. I'm not glorifying them at all.
No, I get you.
That you don't need to look very far for ghost stories.
Right. You got a 4-year-old that won't go to bed at night. That is.
Yeah.
Like we said before, there's a whole cult classic based off of that stuff.
Absolutely. By the way, just and a joking side of this, Scout has this wonderful horror writer. If you're not familiar with him, his name is John Clark.
Okay.
John Clark has done a number of different books for us, but among them Black Friday, Something Juicy, and the one that I just picked up from Scout this weekend to sell at my table in Indianapolis is Playthings, which is super disturbing. Well, anyway, I'm cycling through Instagram, and there's this video, somebody where they're looking into a room. Somebody has 300 cats in their house. Ooh. 300 cats. And I'm like, dude, I took that video and sent it to John. I was like, dude, this is your next horror assignment right here. Because, I mean, I'm not anti-cat. I'm more of a dog person myself. I'm not anti-cat at all. But, dude, 300 cats in the same room, and you're supposed to walk in there with them?
That's an army.
Not happening, man.
They're plotting against you, man.
Yeah. Even, let's just say even 10% of them don't like you, man. You're going to die.
Yeah, you're going down.
It's not good.
Ooh, wow.
So I was like, yeah, that's going to be your next horror story right there, buddy. Have at it. I want to see what you do. I'll edit it for you.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. No cats. I already had to tell Annabelle. My daughter's named Annabelle. So,
God.
No cats. We've had that conversation. Well, so you mentioned, obviously. So it's funny. Black Friday, I picked that one up pretty recently. What are some of the other titles that are coming out from Scout coming up that we want people to go check out? I picked up the Ric Flair and the Magic 8 Ball from Midtown Comics in New York last weekend. That was super cool. But what else is going out?
Well, since I happen to have Ric Flair, let me at least show one of the covers. There's many covers, but I'll just show you this one. Ric Flair.
Yep.
Huh.
And the Magic 8 Ball. Basically, the premise of this, it's fun. It's it's a one-shot comic, and the basic idea is that all those years that Ric Flair was the bad boy of wrestling and traveling around doing these wrestling tournaments, that it was actually just cover for his real job, which he was a secret agent fighting against the forces of evil.
I love it,
and it's a lot of fun. He basically kind of gets these kind of like superpowers, like a super soldier. So it's a little bit of a Captain America meets James Bond.
Sure.
But it's definitely fun. So that's one, that I would recommend is a good read. We've got one that's just coming out now that I'm really excited about called Count Dante. And Count Dante is a kung fu title. Okay, 6 issues. It's set in Chicago in the 1970s. And we've deliberately, like, the art style looks like the 1970s. The introductory like credits and stuff like that are deliberately patterned after 1970s comic books. Even the lettering style, using the exclamation points on the bam and slam and all that stuff, really trying to follow the 1970s kind of a vibe and feel to the book. And of course, it's this kung fu. Chuck Norris appears. Bruce Lee appears in the book. Real, kung fu fighters actually have these cameo appearances. But it's a lot of fun. And if you enjoy like things like Iron Fist or the Hands of Kung Fu, I think it's Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. It's been so long, but those kind of books from the 1970s that I was reading as a kid, so it really rings a lot of bells for me. And it's just a fun book. And the artwork, Wes Watson is the artist, and then Clay Barber is the writer. And they just killed it. It's just
nice.
a really good book. I think people are going to really enjoy it. And it's an adventure. It's fun. It's tongue in cheek. It's kind of, spoofing, Kung Fu books and it's just good. So that's one. Another one that we've got coming out that I actually edit too. I actually happen to have just the ash can with me today, but it's called Orson Welles' Warrior of the Worlds.
Nice.
Okay.
Huh.
And this premise is, you've all heard of the War of the Worlds. Remember the big radio broadcast that it was, it was a hoax. It was just to get, it was entertainment. Well, except for it wasn't. Except for the fact that Orson Welles actually worked as an agent for the United States as part of a federation of planets fighting against interplanetary evil. So it is very sci-fi, very pulpy. And we actually had to get permission from his estate, from the Orson Welles estate.
So I was gonna ask that.
So that's going to be a fun series. I think people will enjoy. So those are just a couple of books. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that we've had books that have come out recently that I would totally recommend. We've got Black Demon Tales that's coming out with our Chispa imprint, Latinx imprint. That's actually got a movie. The movie is
so it's got a movie, right?
The Black Demon movie is actually going to be out. I think its first day in the theaters is April 28th, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And that's cool. Like if you like the Jaws type thing, but it's connected with Mexican like folklore relating to this giant, it's not like a great white shark. It's more like a megalodon. Just a monster of a shark. And so that I think people are going to enjoy as well. Then the other one, this one has like a near and dear place in my heart, it's called The Life and Death of the Brave Captain Suave. And this is a cool story. So let me pitch this one to you.
Hit me.
So it's set in modern day Cleveland. Okay. And the main characters are street people. Okay. So you have this guy who's an old street guy. And then his sidekick is a drug addict, a young drug addict. And at first we don't know it, but we'll eventually learn both their backstories, which are tragic, how they actually got to the street. But what's interesting, despite all the tragedy that this guy went through, he has decided to become a superhero. He imagines himself to be a golden age superhero. Okay. When he's in his manic phase, like off his meds. Okay. So, yeah. And the way that they've done this is just fabulous. The artist has two different art styles. So when he is in his manic phase as the superhero Captain Suave, you have this golden age style of art that is the entire story is done that way. So like, for example, in his manic phase, he might misconstrue the ash can, like a trash can for being like a monster. And so he'll have this, running dialogue and battle with this trash can where he's absolutely beating the tar out of the trash can. He actually has a battle, if I'm not mistaken, with like a steam shovel and bulldozer. Yeah, it's and then when he's in his sane stage, they use this watercolor style of art. And it's set in like wintertime Cleveland. So if you've ever been in the Rust Belt in the winter, it's kind of got that, it's kind of got the brown snow kind of thing going on. It's kind of dreary, slushy, that type of thing, cold. It's kind of got that miserable, vibe that really, kind of makes it feel real, where street people are around the burning barrel, try to keep warm, in the really cold northern weather. But it's basically, they talk about it as being kind of a modern take on Don Quixote.
Okay. I like that.
But it's really good. And it's funny because you'll laugh your butt off. You'll cry. It'll definitely make you cry. I don't care who you are. If it doesn't make you cry, there's probably something wrong with you. It'll, like I said, it'll make you laugh. It'll make you angry too, because you're like, you start it really, in a way, without trying to beat you over the head with it. It just kind of helps you see that, if with the right circumstances happening to you, that you could easily end up on the street. None of us are really that far from there. And it's a really good story. So I recommend that. That's a 5-issue arc. And the plan is to do a sequel of another 5 issues. We actually have that 5 issues sequel has already been written. So it's just a matter of doing the art.
Nice.
But yeah, those are some just off the top of my head.
I love it. I want to read all of them, and I probably will. We'll see what happens. So, well, very cool. Thank you. So I know we're running a little over on time, so we're going to get to kind of our last 2 questions, and they'll be quick ones. So the first one for the Shepherd. So obviously, everyone that's going to watch this is going to want to go buy the Shepherd. Where can they get it right now?
Well, the easiest place, of course, is probably get it at scoutcomics.com. So at the website. I also have a website for the Shepherd dedicated just for the Shepherd, theshepherdcomic.com. Okay. Real easy to find. And it has if you're a collector and you want the variant issues and all that type of thing. I've got all that. Certainly Scout has many of them, if not all of them. I'm not sure that they have all of them, but I think they've got certainly a lot of them. So it just depends on what you're looking for. But those are probably your 2 best bets for that.
Perfect. I definitely recommend going and checking it out. Again, great series, and again, I'm beyond excited for the next 2 rounds of it. All right, so last question. I told you I was going to ask this one. What advice do you have for anybody who's trying to get started, whether it's as a writer, whether it's as an editor, whether they're just starting to get started in the industry? What advice do you have for them?
Well, I think getting a reliable mentor is going to be really important, because like I said, what a good mentor can do for you, somebody who's already been there, done that, they can give you a lot of advice that can help prevent you from taking some, really bad decisions. And they can help guide you, like even how to work with a creative team, the importance of being patient, different strategies that you can take for fundraising to put money together. Lots of different things. I was very blessed. Like even when Roberto and I had the book published, because there's a lot, you have you've got your book. It's taken you years, but you've written a script and you've hired an artist and you've paid for the art and you've got everything. And now you have a book and you even got a publisher. Yay. I'm done. No, you're not. No, you are not done. Not at all. But there was a lot to learn even when you're getting into the conventions and stuff like that. And I was very fortunate that when we first got in, that we got a lot of really wonderful advice from Walter Osley. I don't know if you've met him before, but
I'm not.
He's another Florida-based, the Orlando area, Florida-based creator. He has actually a couple of books that he's done with Scout. Metal Shark Bro.
I was going to say the name really sounds familiar. As soon as you said, I'm like,
he did the art for that. He's done another book for Scout called Shiver Bureau, which is kind of a Ghostbusters meets Doctor Who. And then he's done the Cubicles, that's an independent book that he has done. And I know he's done, the name was right on the top of my head, but he's done work with webtoons as well. So yeah, I mean, he's a prolific artist, but wonderful, wonderful human being, and just so helpful. Great advice. Actually, I believe he has a YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken, where he does give advice on comics. And I would recommend anybody, I'd send them to that channel and take Walter's advice. Very wise, and been in it, doing it for quite some time now.
Awesome. I love that. It's so funny because I actually did watch some stuff on that YouTube channel at some point. So I was like, oh wait, yeah, I checked that out.
Yeah, he's very knowledgeable, and just like I said, great human being, very generous with his time and, answering questions and stuff like that.
And I think that's a great point too, just because, I mean, there's as much as you think, kind of going into this. And a lot of times, again, if you're going to be a writer or creator, you've got a little bit of an ego because you got to at least think that you got a story people are going to want to read. It's got to be
yeah.
But, going into this and you go work these cons and stuff, just, the best advice I can follow that up with is like, it's okay to not be the smartest person in the room. like listen more than you actually talk, and just kind of hear what people have to say. And that was the exact opposite of what I did. I mean, I just wanted to talk. So I would just recommend listen. Like just listen, take it. It's okay.
I'm still learning.
Yeah,
I will
same.
promise you that. I'm still learning. Every convention I go to, I learn, you know, and I try to
Every
listen to
show.
what other people are doing and paying attention to even how do they do their displays?
Mhm.
How do they pitch their books? And I've come a long way, you know, and I'm not a natural salesman. I'm not like you, Todd. I'm really not. I've had to learn, you know, to do it because you have no choice, you know, but I've talked to a lot of people and picked their brain about sales and stuff like that.
Well, I think you're really good at it for what it's worth.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, I get it though. But so it's funny you mention that, and again, we'll wrap right after this. But you know, that's the piece, right? You usually come into this industry, you're good at something, and like your thought is you're going to lean on that thing you're good at. Don't like learn the things that you're not good at, and you know, hire people to do the things you just can't do, and you know, learn to again work and network and talk to people. But you know, I was lucky enough that sales was the part I was good at. I had to learn how to write.
We're still learning to write, though. I mean, every project, I mean, it's a learning process there too.
So, but it's it. I mean, and again, I would, but I think that's great advice in terms of finding a mentor and just finding somebody who, you know, you can pick their brain, and then I'll add to that eventually become somebody else's mentor. Pay it back.
You will,
right?
you will. You need to pay it forward. You need to share what you've learned and, you know, are learning. No, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing to do that, you know, become part of a larger community and think about the future of the business that you love, you know, of comics and stuff like that.
Completely agreed. Well, Andrea, man, I want to thank you for your time. Not just for coming in, not just for chatting with us today, but all the time, all the questions that I've asked, and then just all the stuff. You know, you have done that mentorship for me as well, and I'm beyond appreciative of it. So thanks for coming on and chatting with us today. We're going to go ahead and wrap. Everyone have a great one. Go check out The Shepherd.